is raining.
It is raining. That's right. It is. Yeah. He's excited. Are you excited, buddy?
It's going down.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. It's coming down.
It's the direction the rain goes.
All right, so we just got to Huntsville. So tell us who you are first.
Okay, I'm Amy Heflin.
Tony Heflin.
Emily Heflin.
And so, mummy, daddy,
Oldest.
oldest,
Next to
Youngest.
next oldest, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Mary.
You, Mary, and then
David.
David,
And Sally.
Sally. Wow. Okay, it's lovely to meet you all. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So tell us your story. Go back to the beginning. How you were before. What happened?
At the very beginning, it starts with Emily. Emily had a reaction to the MMR and the varicella vaccines. She ran a really high fever, like 105 fever, and had spots and everything. When I called the doctor was very. He didn't want her to come in. He said if anything else happens, just take her to the ER. So we kind of just lost some trust at that point in the doctors. The next vaccine injury was with Sarah. Sarah, at 4 months old, was before that completely calm, sweet, wonderful baby. Just would go along with everything. And all of a sudden, after her vaccinations at 4 months, she was so fussy and so inconsolable, and just screamed. Would just scream for 30 minutes at a time, an hour at a time. For weeks. So one of my friends told me to look into what was called the encephalitic scream. And so we did. And all of a sudden, the doors were wide open. And we were in the midst of, what vaccines do. And all of a sudden, we were very distrustful. So at that point, we decided to not vaccinate anymore until we had all of the information that we wanted to get. And let's fast forward to 2011. In January of 2011, we became foster parents. And in February 9th, he was 4 days old. He came to us. David did. Came to us at 4 days old, right from the hospital. And he grew up perfectly normal. He hit all the milestones and then some. He was walking on time. He was talking great, 3-word sentences by 12 months. So at 17 months, we took him into. I had tried to put it off. With foster care system, we were already anti-vax at that point, but we have to keep him up to date with the vaccine.
So people keep an eye on you on
right with this. The state made us.
You have no say in the fact that he has to be vaccinated.
He had to be vaccinated.
Who wants to be a foster kid? That's not nice.
Yeah, right. I know.
Okay.
And so we took him. I kept trying to put it off, and I would cancel appointments, and just something was telling me this is not good. And so at 17 months, finally, we got the MMR, the varicella, and the Hep A vaccines. And we brought him home. 4 hours after that,
literally to the minute.
Does he want to come and play in the seat here? Will that make him better?
He'll rampage.
Okay, all right. All right, so
you want to go stand with Miss Rebecca? She might hold you.
Come play with me. Yeah, come on.
Okay.
You can come play with me.
He just wants to be somewhere else. He gets impatient. But so 4 hours after he got the vaccinations, he went into a seizure. He had never had seizures before, any kind of problems before. The seizure lasted about 25 minutes. He was on the way to the hospital when it finally stopped. That night, they wanted to keep him overnight, and that night he had several more small ones. We didn't know what we were looking at, and we thought that he was just in pain or something was going on. And the doctors didn't even recognize it. When they would come in, he would be done. With the episode, it would be done. He had about 9 of those.
We learned later they were absence seizures.
Seizures, yeah.
And at one point, the ER doctor happened to be in there when he did it, and he just looked at him and said, well, maybe he's congested or something. And so they wound up prescribing him nasal spray. And it was completely non sequitur. And throughout the process, we had already said to everybody who would listen, he was vaccinated today. We're concerned this is a reaction. And at every point that we did that, we either got just a blank stare or a no, that can't be it. His pediatrician, we called her as quickly as we could after we kind of got settled in, and she just was unconcerned. It just wasn't her thing. But the trip to the ER was really just eye-opening, because they didn't know what they were seeing, and we knew it wasn't right, but we didn't know what it was either at the time. And we just felt like the concerns were never really addressed. I don't know if doing anything differently then would have made a difference or not, but
thankfully at 2.5 we got to adopt him, and we had control at that point to say no more.
All right, so let's go back. So he's in hospital. They're really not interested. They send you home?
The next morning.
Once again, the things that I just will never forget, the doctor came in, the neurologist, I don't know who he was, and he said, talking about children having seizures, the first one is free. We don't do anything.
It was probably a febrile seizure. His temperature only went
First
up.
one is free.
Yeah.
Meaning they don't really care to investigate it until there's more than one.
Yeah.
Subsequent ones.
They called it a febrile seizure.
And it
His
wasn't.
temperature was only about 100. It only got up to 100 the whole time. He did not have febrile seizures. It was not febrile, so.
Well, it was a tonic-clonic.
Yeah.
And, I guess that was at the point when he said the first one's free and we're not going to do any additional tests or anything else. That's where I just reached the point where I lost any faith or trust I had in the system. And, I mean, it wasn't, it's not normal.
No. He kept having seizures after that, and was eventually diagnosed with what's called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, and it's basically an epileptic condition that could last the rest of his life, and probably will last the rest of his life. And and then we got him diagnosed, and he has autism also. So
how has it affected? You've got a large family here. What do you girls think about what's happened to your now brother?
I mean, I hate it. It was a really rough time for me and for all of us, because by that time, since we'd had him since he was born, basically, we loved him like he was our brother. And he didn't know any different, and it was just really hard for us to see him going through all of that.
Thank you for saying that. It is hard, and it should never have happened.
Right.
So what is your advice to parents out there? What do you say to them?
Please don't do any vaccinations until you have exhausted all resources of research. Please research before you inject your child with anything. Know exactly what is going to into their body. Read the inserts from the vaccination boxes, and I'm not talking about the sheets that the pediatricians give you that have just a few symptoms that they could experience. The sheets are as big as me, and have lists a mile long of contraindications that mean that so certain people shouldn't have them, and certain reactions could happen. I think on David, the MMR and the varicella both had seizures as a possible reaction.
They do.
So just definitely know what you're putting into your child's body. They're not capable of processing all of the things that are in those shots. They're not capable of getting rid of the toxins that are going into their body. These little tiny babies at birth, and we're injecting them with poison. that. There are some practices out there, I know Rebecca's probably told you, that absolutely state when you come into that practice, you have to follow their schedule to the T. If you do not, you will leave the practice. So
what about family practitioners rather than pediatricians?
That's
That's
what we
where
do.
we've been.
That's what we do. Family practitioners aren't pressured to get 100% compliance, as they say, with the vaccination schedule. So our family pediatrician is just fine. She actually says that she understands why we won't vaccinate him. So because she understands the reaction that he had and how bad it was, and we don't want to experience that again. He doesn't want to experience that again.
Well, we're really truly sorry this has happened to your family. To
Thank
your
you.
Beautiful boy.
Thank you.
And thank goodness he has all these wonderful sisters around him.
He does.
We are truly blessed
Yes,
in
we are.
having siblings for him who do anything and everything and go far beyond what's ever required of them to help
Well,
him.
girls,